point out that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 592nd edition of Energy Week with George Harvey. And today is the 26th of September, 2024. This show I will be covering, sorry about that. This show I will be covering news from Thursday, September 19th, which is a week ago today, up until Wednesday, September 25th, which was yesterday. If you look at the description of the show, you can see a link at the bottom of the description that gives you a way to get to what I call the script. It's not really a script for the show. And in that place, every article that's listed is something that I discuss, and each one of them has a link to the original article. The other thing that you can do is go to my website, geoharvey.com, geoharvey.com, to find the links. And what you do there is click on the calendar for the date. I will keep you apprised of the date for these articles. And then when you do that, you will find usually 15 articles that you can look through to find the one that you want. Okay, the first article that I'm dealing with is from PV Magazine International, and the title is "World Now Has 5 Times More PV," that's photovoltaic, "than nuclear capacity." The World Nuclear Energy Status Report 2024, overseen by nuclear consultant Michael Schneider, shows that global operating PV capacity, photovoltaic, exceeds by almost 5 times that of nuclear energy. The number of operating nuclear units stands at 408, which is one more than a year ago. I want to comment on this to say, when you're talking about generating electricity on the grid level, actually on any level, but you have to take into account what is called the capacity factor. The capacity factor of nuclear is very high. In the United States, it's something over 90%. Which worries me, because I think we're cutting corners on refueling. I might be wrong, but the refueling is the biggest slowdown, and we're doing it, I think, too fast. The reason I think that is because in the rest of the world, the capacity factor is closer to 80%. Now, what that means is that a nuclear plant in the United States produces about 90% or a little bit more of the amount of electricity that you would expect if you ran that 100% flat out for the entire year. And the biggest reason for losing capacity is that every 18 months to 2 years, usually every 18 months, a nuclear reactor has to be shut down to have new fuel put in. It's usually a third of the fuel is taken out, and then that amount is put back. Now, in photovoltaic capacity, famously, the sun does not shine all the time. And when it's cloudy, the PVs produce less electricity, and when it's raining, they produce almost none. And so solar has a relatively low capacity factor, which might be 15%, which means that nuclear could outmatch solar by a factor of 6. It doesn't actually, but it could. This report is comparing solar power worldwide with nuclear power worldwide, and it says we have 5 times more photovoltaic power than nuclear. I'm not sure what 5 times more means. Does that mean 6 times as much? Or is it stating 5 times as much badly? I don't know. This is something that has always bothered me. Nevertheless, what this story is saying is that the amount of electricity that we're getting from solar power is similar to the amount of electricity that we get from nuclear. Just, I wanted to make that clear. Okay, the next picture we have, I didn't show that picture, did I? That's photovoltaics on a roof. Okay, the next picture we have is a picture of the bridge fire, which is in Los Angeles, near Los Angeles. It's not, obviously not in Los Angeles. This is from ABC News. The title of the article is Firefighters Nearing Victory in Battle Against 3 Massive Wildfires Near Los Angeles. More than 8,000 firefighters are nearing victory in battles against the airport, bridge, and line wildfires near Los Angeles. This, of course, is a picture of the bridge fire. Combined, the 3 wildfires have burned over 117,000 acres, destroyed nearly 200 buildings, and injured 23 people. I think the fact that 200 buildings were destroyed was largely because they were out in areas where fires happen. The fact that 23 people was injured in a destruction of 117,000 acres of land near Los Angeles, I think is remarkable. That is something I think is a remarkable success. These fires are just amazingly big. And of course, they're extremely destructive, but they're happening in places where it's hard to get to. They're hard to fight, but also there are not very many people around. Okay. The next story came from Clean Technica. I'm going to put this up. The title of the story is Biden Team Sprinting to Disburse Climate Solutions and Infrastructure Funding. Overall, the policies of President Joe Biden and the Democrats have already spurred unprecedented resurgence in U.S. manufacturing jobs, an exceptional economic boom, and great climate the greatest climate investments in U.S. history, and more is on the way. I'm going to keep that picture up because I want to comment on it. This is a graph of investments in construction in the United States. This is not just climate infrastructure being built or generating capacity being built. This is construction. And it is basically what you have on the red side of this, the left side, is what was going on under Donald Trump. And on the right side, it's what you have under President Biden. And it does not take a lot of imagination to understand here that construction was going on under Donald Trump, but it was not really growing by much. It might have grown 10% during his tenure. The construction under Joe Biden has grown amazingly. It's grown from 70 some odd $1 million to $230 plus million. And that's an incredible boom in construction that has happened under Joe Biden. And clearly this was because of the American Rescue Plan, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, the Inflation Reduction Act. A lot of stuff has happened because of the Inflation Reduction Act. And this is an ongoing thing. I don't know what will happen to it if Donald Trump returns to the White House but I imagine that Kamala Harris would push it farther. It has to go farther. This is something that's important. Even with the improvements that we've had in the last 4 years, they're not enough. We have to basically triple what we had in order to achieve what we want to achieve. And it is a very important thing that we do that. Okay, we're up to Friday, September 20th. It's very important, I want to add this, it's very important partly because of climate change. And I think our actions on climate change have been held up by various people, which might include Rupert Murdoch, it might include various Republicans, including Donald Trump. And but we have to address climate change, and that's going to mean that we have to close down the coal burning plants, the oil burning plants, of which we have very few, and the gas burning plants that we have, along with converting from gasoline burning cars to electric cars. I don't see a way of getting around that. Maybe somebody knows of something, but I haven't seen it. And so basically what I'm saying is, if we want to get through the difficulties that I see ahead of us, that I believe are impending, that are ongoing, the crazy weather that we have been having and so forth, we have to have people elected in Washington, D.C. who are going to be cognizant of what was going on. And by the way, I used to be a Republican. I stopped kind of being a Republican before Donald Trump went into office. But nevertheless, I was attracted to the Republican Party partly because of its positions on the environment, which used to be good. So, I mean, the EPA was created with Richard Nixon in office. How did that happen? Well, Nixon prevented certain things from happening, which happened anyway because his veto was overridden, for example. But he also signed things in law. Same thing with Ronald Reagan. And the Republican Party now is, I think it's lost its way. Anyway, we have an article coming up now. We're up to Friday, September 20th. We have an article from Asian Power, and we have a picture of a solar farm. We always have pictures of solar farms. The title of this article is "Over 500 Gigawatts of Solar Power to be Installed in 2024. Well, 500 gigawatts of solar power is the equivalent of 80, 90, 100 gigawatts of nuclear power, which is maybe 100 nuclear power plants. That's what the solar is equivalent to. We have to install more than this. It has to be installed faster. You know, I'm working on my own ideas of how to do that. This article, the synopsis says, the world is on track to install 593 gigawatts of solar power this year, according to Ember. Ember is a environmental think tank, and I would have to put the title at nearly 600 gigawatts instead of over 500 gigawatts, but nevertheless, the synopsis goes on, this is 29% more than what was installed last year. In its latest analysis, Ember said solar, quote, will likely add more gigawatts in 2024 than the entire global increase in coal power capacity since 2010, which was 540 gigawatts. So coal capacity is still being installed, particularly in China. I don't think it's being installed in Indonesia, but it is being installed in India. And the countries where it's being installed have said that they are going to get rid of it. But whether that's going to be practical for them in the near future, I don't know. So, you know, there's a job there too. Anyway, the next item, and believe me, I don't understand this photograph. It says it's a test bed for a 25 megawatt turbine. I can understand that, but I don't know what's going on in the photograph, aside from the fact that there appears to be a mast in the background with stairs running up the outside of it. However, the article comes from Renews. The title of the article is Hamburg 2024, R&D progresses as 25 megawatt test bed. I'm sorry, got that wrong. R&D progresses 25 megawatt test bed. I said as. R&D Test Systems in Denmark completed the 3,700-ton foundation for its 25 megawatt turbine test bench. After the foundation's completion, the center is now designing and welding the test bench parts that will perform extreme test loads on main bearings for 25 megawatt wind turbines. So the 25 megawatt wind turbine has not yet been built. But when it is, they will have a place to put it to test it. And they're planning on doing that in Denmark. So we're making progress. As far as I know, the largest current turbines are in the neighborhood of 20 megawatts, which a year ago I would have found almost incredible. But there have been a number of things that have come along in the last year, and we are making more progress along that line. Anyway, and by the way, these big turbines, and we're going to see more about this in this show. There's another place where we're talking about big turbines, but in the neighborhood of upwards of 6 megawatts and going up to 20, now possibly 25 megawatts. Those big turbines are all for installation at sea. And the reason for that is because you have to get the nacelle and the blades of the wind turbine to the place where the wind turbine is installed. And on land, it's just, I don't know how you would do that in most places. It might be that if you had a number of wind farms out in a desert someplace where roads, are kind of iffy, you might be able to get things to where you want them to be by driving across the desert or the salt flats or whatever. But in general, it's not practical to go moving something around that's 120 yards long. Or a nacelle that's bigger than a house, and you have to move 150 of them, or however many you've got. At sea, you can do it with ships. It's not a problem. But on land, it's a problem. Maybe somebody will solve that problem. I don't know. Anyway, our next picture is of a person who is involved in a protest. This is from ABC News. ABC News, I have two different news sources. One is American Broadcast Corporation and the other one is Australian. And the one that I refer to as ABC News is American. The one I refer to as just ABC is Australian. And that's because that was the way they came up when I started the show and up until very recently. Now, ABC, which is Australia, is spelling its name out, but I'm going to continue using the same system I have been using. This particular article from ABC News, American, has the title Youth, I'm going to put the picture up. Youth activists plan protests to demand action on climate as big events open in New York City. Yeah, there have been big events opening in New York City and in other places too at the same time. Activists are preparing for protests around the world to demand action on climate change, just as a pair of major new week-long climate events. One is Climate Week, New York City, NYC, and the other is UN General Assembly, are starting to get underway in New York City. And it happens that there was another thing going on in Hamburg, and there may have been other places where it was happening. But this is a protest in New York City. So, time to go on. We're up to Saturday, September 21st, and we have a picture of Blue Oval City Factory construction. This is from Clean Technica, the article. Over $3 billion to support America's battery manufacturing sector, create jobs, and enhance national security. The United States Department of Energy announced over $3 billion for 25 projects in 14 states to boost production of advanced batteries and battery materials in the United States. The project should support over 8,000 construction jobs and over 4,000 operational jobs. And I should mention, these jobs, this construction, is happening primarily in states like Georgia, Alabama, Louisiana, Texas, other states too, but the Biden administration is not shortchanging areas that vote Democrat, or Republican rather, favoring the Democrats, which was something that bothered me about Donald Trump, because he would give something to Republican states and then withhold it from New York because New York didn't vote for him. The Biden administration does not seem to be set on revenge, but it is something that has been happening. These battery factories are going to be making big batteries in big quantities, and they are going to be used for electric vehicles, for grid batteries, and so forth. And I just want to mention here, people complain about lithium-ion batteries because they are said to be dangerous, because they catch fire. They do catch fire. And the fires are hard to put out. They are about 5% as likely to catch fire as a gasoline-burning car, which I've seen cars on the highway that broke down and caught fire on more than one occasion. And that is an impressive fire. When a car has caught fire and its gas tank has burst. A gallon of gasoline, I looked it up. I tried to look it up. I couldn't get an actual number. A gallon of gasoline evaporated into the air in a confined space has an explosive capacity which is equal to, and then the quantity that this is related to varies enormously, from 20 to 80 sticks of dynamite. And honestly, I don't want that in my garage. So I don't want a lithium-ion battery car if I can get something that's better, although I think it's better than gasoline. Lithium ferrophosphate is an alternative. Tesla makes lithium-ion batteries for its cars in the United States and lithium ferrophosphate batteries for its cars in China. And the reason why it does that, I think, is because it started making batteries in the United States before it started making batteries for cars made in China. And to convert a lithium-ion battery factory, which could be putting out a gigawatt, if you will, of battery capacity annually, to convert that from lithium-ion to lithium ferrophosphate might not be all that easy. And they might just say, look, the chance of a car catching fire because of lithium-ion is so low that we can just continue to do it. The other thing that I want to mention is there's more different kinds of batteries than you can shake a stick at. They're the largest battery in the world in terms of the amount of energy it will store, not in terms of amount of power it will deliver, is a 1 megawatt, 10 gigawatt hour battery that's being put up in Maine. And it is being put up using a technology developed by Form Energy, which is in Somerville, Massachusetts. And then the batteries are being made in West Virginia. Those batteries are 100-hour batteries, which means that if you discharge them at the fastest they will discharge, they will continue giving you power for 100 hours, as opposed to lithium-ion batteries, which are usually 4-hour batteries. I'm not entirely sure why Form Energy is delivering 100-hour batteries. I don't think that they're necessary, but that's what they're doing. And maybe one of these days I'll find out why they're doing that, and it might make perfect sense to me. Anyway, we are up to another article from CNN, and we have a picture now of Thwaites Glacier. This is just a little piece of Thwaites Glacier, and I don't know how tall that cliff is. It might be, well, I'm going to put it this way. It's not 20 feet. It might be 200 feet. I just don't know. But the title of the article is "Scientists Look Deep Beneath Doomsday Glacier. What They Found Spells Potential Disaster for the Planet." Scientists using ice-breaking ships and underwater robots have found Thwaites Glacier in Antarctica is melting at an accelerating rate and could be on an irreversible path to collapse, spelling global sea level rise catastrophe. Well, a global sea level rise catastrophe is not going to unfold instantly. It's not going to unfold in 1 year. I don't think it could unfold in 10 years. And my suspicion is that what they're talking about is a catastrophe that takes 50 or 60 years to happen. Thwaites Glacier, if it melts, what happens to Mar-a-Lago? I don't know. Anyway, there it is. I'm going to go on. We have an image of an EV charging station. This article is from Clean Technica. The title is "Morocco Increases Impact on Global EV Market, $10 billion in EV investments." Morocco's role in the EV transition keeps growing with the investments it makes. Morocco is establishing itself as a leading power in African automotive sector, having overtaken South Africa in 2018 as the largest car manufacturer in Africa, and now it's doing more. I remember a friend of mine when I was 8 had a toy which was a plastic spaceship. It was really interesting because the top of it was clear plastic and you could see all the stuff inside. It was very exciting. It was, perhaps that big. And he said it was made in Africa. And I said, can't be made in Africa. People in Africa are too primitive. That's me, age of 8. And he said, no, look, and it said on it, South Africa. And I went home and told my father about it, and he said, where was it made? And I said, South Africa. He said, South Africa is pretty advanced. They're not slouches down there. Well, what's happened here is Morocco is ahead of South Africa. Opposite ends of the continent, but Morocco is building up. And it's funny because I don't think of Morocco as being a particularly industrial nation, but there it is. It's happening. Okay, we're up to Sunday, September 22nd, and we have a very interesting article from The National, which I'm not sure, but my experience with The National is it's either an organization that exists in many countries or often when I go there, I see stories that are about Pakistan. So it might be a Pakistani publication. But in this particular case, they're talking about something that happened in Yemen. The title is Meet the Woman Who Lit Up Yemen's Towns One Solar Panel at a Time. Well, I gotta tell you, it wasn't one solar panel at a time. Might have been 6. Abs, ABS, is a town in Yemen. It had been left with nearly no electricity due to the destruction of power grids during the ongoing war that began in 2014 when Houthi rebels stormed the capital. These are the same rebels who have been shooting missiles at ships going through the Red Sea. A woman named Iman designed a solar station that reduces costs by 60%. Well, she did a little bit more than that. She had to convince her family, and she actually had one brother disown her and say that he was going to shoot her. She had to convince her family to allow her to go ahead with this. And since that happened, she has built solar panels systems. This is just one part of a solar system that she designed. And she's got 40 rather poor households in Abs on the solar microgrid that she designed and was built. I'm not sure who built it, but I kind of suspect that it might have been built by women. The idea in this particular area is that women are really for doing housework, and that's it. And you know, this was something that some of the men found kind of insulting. But she had the education that it took to design a microgrid, and this microgrid system that she designed is being used in other parts of Yemen. So it's, you know, I don't know where this is going to get off, but it will soon. And it's interesting to think about also, because in a war, these systems just keep running. The grids can be pulled down, cut up, you know, copper sold, whatever. But a person has to really kind of force his way into a system that is providing electricity for a poor community. And that does not work in a war. Okay, now I've got a picture of the world. The gray areas in this are land. The Pacific Ocean is in the middle. At the top, you have the Bering Sea, and I'm mentioning this because, first of all, this is a Mercator projection which goes kind of out of bounds, and the result of that is that the shapes of things are a little bit skewed. The second thing is that because the land is gray and the ocean is different colors, white, red, yellow, blue, you name it, it is a little bit difficult, at least for me, to see what's going on. This article is from Clean Technica. The title is Global Surface Temperatures Are Rising Faster Now Than at Any Time in the Past 485 million years. Climate researchers at the University of Arizona and the Smithsonian used 150,000 pieces of fossil evidence in the latest climate models to find the average global surface temperatures for the full period of multicellular life. What we are seeing is new. Okay, so the idea here is climate change is happening fast. That doesn't mean we've got the hottest temperatures, but it means that the increases in temperatures are happening the fastest they have at any time since multicellular life appeared 485 million years ago. This is incredible. It's the speed of change is itself destructive. Yeah, the heat is destructive, the drought is destructive, the floods are destructive, the rain is destructive, but the speed of change is destructive. 30 years ago, there was no Lyme disease in Vermont. Today, it's a problem. Why? Why did it suddenly happen? Because the temperature went up. And the same thing can be said over and over and over again. We've got rainfall that produces 1 in 1,000 events regularly. This is different than anything we have seen before. And but I want to go back to this map because there is something that is interesting here to me. If you look at North America, I hope you can see it, and you look off the East Coast, you can see that off the East Coast of North America is an area that is colder than normal. Now, normally it is hotter than other areas of the ocean. And when it is colder than normal, it's colder than it normally is, and that might still be hotter than the rest of the ocean. But it is colder than normal. And that is the area through which the Gulf Stream travels to get from the Gulf of Mexico to Northern Europe. Now, if you look at the Gulf of Mexico and you go east from there, you'll see a red band, which is hotter than normal. And it goes from the Gulf of Mexico to West Africa, and then it goes up along the West African coast, up along the Spanish coast to Ireland and the UK. And I wonder, because we're seeing information saying the Atlantic meridional ocean current is slowing down. I wonder whether it's not just slowing down, but rerouting. And if it is, that might open a time when East Coast lobstermen are going to see an increase in lobsters, and the UK will see that the temperatures don't go down. I don't know. It's just a thought that I had. Okay, I'm way behind in this. Okay, the next picture that I've got is a picture of solar panels. The article is from oilprice.com. The title is U.S. Solar Energy Soars Despite Chinese Competition. The U.S. is seeing record annual solar energy capacity growth thanks to greater investment in the sector, that is, investment in the United States. The already rapidly growing solar industry boomed after the Inflation Reduction Act was passed and other favorable policies were introduced. The growth is expected to continue. And that growth is happening across the United States, including places like Arkansas, Alabama, and so forth. The growth is supposed to happen all across the country. I'm going to go on a little bit faster because at this point I'm still behind. Okay, we have a picture of a wave. This looks to me as a non-surfer like a wave that somebody might like to surf on. But we don't need waves like that for this story. The story comes from Renews. The title is U.S. Unveils $112 million fund for wave energy projects. The United States Department of Energy's Wave Power Technologies Office has announced a $112 million funding call for demonstrations of wave energy technologies. The funding is to be spread out over 5 years and will offer funding for projects under 3 topic areas. Funds are also available for related technologies. Now, you don't need a wave this big to get energy out of waves. You can have little waves and get energy out of those waves. And we've had pictures of them. It's things that go like that as the waves go by that, have knuckles in them that flex, and that flexing makes energy, or it's something that rides up and down, and the riding up and down makes energy. Okay, I'm gonna go on again. We have an article. Whoops. We have an article from Clean Technica. Excuse me. This is a picture that was taken from a camera that was on the end of a wing of a small drone aircraft powered by solar power. Electric aviation with unlimited range is getting cheaper and smaller. The smaller the plane, the easier it is to electrify or go even full electric with it. Once you get to unmanned planes and helicopters that carry a small sensor payload, such as a camera, you're in a realm where all electric aviation has been around for over a decade. If you think about a camera that's mounted on the wing of this drone, you might be thinking about something that weighs a bit. But believe me, I've got cameras that, I play around with computers. And I've got cameras that are designed to be plugged into computers, and some of them are no heavier than a match. They're just tiny little things with tiny little wires, and you could mount one on this. And it could look down on the ground, and it could see what's on the ground and radio that back, or radio it back to send the picture back to the owner. It's kind of impressive what you can do. Okay, we have another picture, also from Renews. Actually, that one was from Clean Technica. A picture of a solar farm. This particular farm is in South America, in Chile, in the desert. The title is Grenergy expands Chile battery project by 1 gigawatt. When I read that, I thought they were making a battery a gigawatt bigger. No, that's not what they were doing. They were adding solar to it. Grenergy will expand its Oasis de Atacama battery project in Chile with 2 new phases through the acquisition of 1 gigawatt of solar power, including a 1 gigawatt energized line from Repsol and Ibereolica. The operation comprises 77 megawatt solar project and 903 megawatts of PV projects that are under development. So they've got 77 megawatts that are already there, and they've got 923 megawatts that are under development and are being added. Chile is one of those countries that's very advanced in terms of its pursuit of renewable energy. Another one in South America is Brazil. And of course, Costa Rica is way ahead of the United States. I think Chile and Brazil are too. But Costa Rica has got to a point where almost 100% of its energy comes from electricity that is generated from renewables. Okay, the next picture that we've got is a picture of a sailing ship. And that is not a small sailing ship. That's a big sailing ship. And there's things going on the rigging that I don't understand, but they don't look normal for sailing ships to me. This is from Clean Technica. The title is Cargo Ship Crosses the Atlantic Ocean Using Mostly Wind Power. The trouble with fast, modern container ships is that they use fossil fuels and emit a great deal of air pollution that is harmful to the planet and human health. So it is both captivating and exciting to see that a modern, rather large cargo sailing vessel, the Animos, was recently launched and crossed the ocean. This ship is something that resembles, in some ways, the sailing ships that were on the ocean 250 years ago, and that were still sailing 125 years ago. My Uncle Charlie, who was actually my mother's uncle, used to work on a railroad, which was a fast railroad coming from Seattle to New York City. and it had priority over everything else on the track, including express passenger trains. It was carrying silk from Seattle to New York City. The silk came from China, and it came by ship, and the ship was the fastest ship that they could get to carry that, and it happened to be sail powered. At least that's what it sounded like, what he told me. But these sail-powered ships have been around for a long time, and they will continue to be around for a long time. The hope is that they will become a much more important thing in the future. There are things about transportation that we're going to have to deal with. There are things that get shipped that you cannot have at sea for days and days and days. So they get put on ships that are fast, or they put on airplanes. And a lot of that is people who don't want to be slowly moving across the ocean. Anyway, the next item is from Renews. And sorry about that. The title of it, this is an offshore wind farm, obviously. The title of it is Hamburg 2024 Offshore Wind Hits 76 gigawatts. Ahead of Wind Energy Hamburg 2024, which is a meeting that's taking place, Clarkson's research has released, I should have said convention, sorry, has released a range of data points profiling offshore wind sector. Today, 76 gigawatts of offshore wind capacity is active globally, involving 13,800 turbines in 327 wind farms. This is a 13% year-on-year increase. And offshore wind is, I don't know exactly what to say about it. I can tell you the electricity from offshore wind power is cheaper than the electricity from nuclear power, but it is not in the same ballpark as electricity from onshore wind power or solar. It's closer to the cost of nuclear, actually, but it's pretty benign, really, when you consider the environmental impact. I'm sure there are people out there cringing when I say that, but nevertheless, I'm going to stick with that. Okay, our next item, I love this one, is from ABC News. That's American Broadcast Company. This is an Amity tugboat we're looking at. The title is Tugboat Powered by Ammonia Sails, Showing How to Cut Emissions from Shipping. On a tributary of the Hudson River, a tugboat powered by ammonia eased out from a dock and sailed for the first time to show the maritime industry can reduce planet warming carbon emissions. The ammonia is used to power a fuel cell. And that bit of information, the fact that the ammonia is used in a fuel cell, is really important, because there are two different ways to use ammonia. There may be more, but the ones that I know of are, you can burn ammonia, believe it or not, in an internal combustion engine. You have to bear in mind, this is not the stuff that most people call ammonia, which is not really ammonia at all. It is ammonium hydroxide. And ammonium hydroxide will not burn, but it is useful in a kitchen. Oh dear, what have I done? There we go. The cursor that I've got on the screen, I once in a while bump and it goes haywire, and I magically got it together, and I don't know how. But nevertheless, when you burn ammonia, which is a gas, I should say, you can hold it as a liquid, but under atmospheric pressure, it's gas. You can burn that in an internal combustion engine, but it will not produce carbon emissions, but it does produce what are called NOx, which is nitrogen oxide and NO2, nitric oxide. Those emissions have got their own problems. They produce acid rain. They're just not nice. However, one of the things that you can do with ammonia is you can put it through a fuel cell. And if you do that, you split the ammonia into nitrogen and hydrogen. And the hydrogen goes into the fuel cell to generate electricity. The nitrogen is released. The hydrogen going into the fuel cell is combined in the fuel cell with oxygen to produce water, which is then released. The nitrogen that is released into the atmosphere is just joining other nitrogen already in the atmosphere. And since the atmosphere is something like 79% nitrogen, this is not an addition that anybody's going to notice. So this little tugboat is basically a no emissions vehicle. Okay, we are up to Wednesday, September 25th, and we have an item from Renews. The title of this article is SANY launches 8 megawatt turbine for Europe. Now, I told you early in the show, we were talking about 25 megawatt turbines that would be put up at sea. This is the first time I've heard of a turbine that was substantially larger than 6 megawatts. 8 megawatts is a fair amount of electricity. The synopsis says, at Wind Energy Hamburg, Chinese wind turbine maker SANY has launched 2 8 megawatt onshore wind models designed for European wind conditions. According to SANY, the models are the 7.8 megawatt SI 17578 with a 175 meter rotor. That's huge. That's huge. That means the rotor is about the width of 2 football fields length. And the 8 megawatt SI 18580 model with a 185 meter diameter. So these things are just getting bigger. Let me put that up. Excuse me. This is a picture of SANY wind turbines in China, and I don't know how big they are, but they're big. Okay, I'm going to go right on. I mean, we know where we're going with that. I'll go on to the next picture in the next article. This is from Renews. That is a wind turbine installation vessel for installing offshore wind turbines. Havfram to install Waterkant wind turbines. I'm guessing that it's pronounced Waterkant. Havfram, based in Oslo, has signed a contract with Luxcara for the transport and installation of turbines for the 170 megawatt Waterkant offshore wind farm in the German North Sea. The agreement covers the vessel charter for transport and the installation of 16 turbines, Mingyang turbines of 18.5 megawatts each. Now this is this is close to the biggest wind turbines I've seen. They just keep getting bigger. It's cheaper to install a smaller number of larger wind turbines, but you know, there it is. Things are getting, things are progressing. The technology is progressing and so forth. And by the way, these turbines, I don't know where they're going, but in the North Sea, they could very easily be out of sight of land, even though they're as huge as they are. Okay, the last title that we've got, the last article, is from Clean Technica. And we have a picture. If you've heard of a duck curve, if you know what a duck curve is, you might recognize that red line. This duck curve has been filled in. And it's interesting to see solar power, that big kind of orangey brown blob, which is at the top of this thing, is solar power, which has been depressing the net capacity of the grid to the point where in this case it's below zero, which is good for a reason that I will get to. Below that orangey brown area in the middle, there is green before it and after it, and that green is a discharge from batteries. Below that is wind power, which is not constant, but always generating. And below that is natural gas. Now, at the very bottom of this, you'll see an orange area, which is batteries charging. So when the solar power is strong and the net creation of power goes below zero on the graph, that power is being used to charge batteries. And the green, which is farther up, before and after the reddish brown blob, is those batteries discharging. So, as I said, this is from Clean Technica. The title is "This Chart Shows How California is Massively Extending Solar Use into the Evening." It's truly stunning to see how much battery storage is already helping to integrate more solar power in the Golden State. Solar PVs have reached 20% of the California electricity supply, and much of that charges batteries during the daytime. Yes, it does. That orange area at the bottom of this graph is charging batteries. So there you have it. We have one more slide to show you. I'll put it up. And this is the wish for the week. Have a brilliantly unpretentious week. Unpretentious, that's inexpensive. Pretentious, that gets expensive. Do it brilliantly, though. Do it refreshingly. Do it ingeniously. But have a brilliantly unpretentious week. I will say goodbye. I'm sure if Tom were here, he would say goodbye. By the way, next week, I kind of expect to have Nancy Wolf in as a partner. And she is a very knowledgeable woman. And so I'm looking forward to that. But come back next time. I hope you have a lovely week, a brilliantly unpretentious week. Bye-bye.